The wind. It sounds so wonderful. The wind is bullshit. I'll tell you, it's horrible.
Ah, yes, the wind. What is the wind, Michael? The wind is Mariah. I think what he said was Mariah. Why did you bleep Mariah? The wind is Mariah. That's kind of it's the first time I've ever heard that bleeped. Well, happy Thursday to you. The state of Florida taking a beating, taking a walloping. I had to tell you, yesterday I was talking to a friend and colleague, and almost out of the blue, but not really out of the blue, he said, I think I've decided not to retire to Florida. I think I've decided to retire someplace else, not Florida. Interesting, I thought, probably not alone in that. What with these hurricanes and everything, and it's they have something they call hurricane season. It's hurricane season, and that can't be good, can it? Honestly, I mean, how strong can you build your house, and how high off the ground, and all that stuff? What with the floodwaters and the storm surges, and the news media, they're Democrats, they're Democrat Party front groups. They have politicized it. I know that's hard to believe. That's hard to imagine. They politicized the hurricane. Joe Biden has politicized the hurricane. I know that's hard to believe, too. That's tough. President Trump, he knows about it because he owns a bunch of properties in Florida, and he has for a long time. Some of them, what's that? Mar-a-Lago, the judge in New York, said it's worth $18 million. It's actually worth $500 million or $700 million. But they were lying, the judge in New York, a crooked Democrat judge. Ought to be in cuffs, ought to be in an orange jumpsuit. Interesting stuff. But President Trump does know about this. He's got a big footprint in Florida, and this is not lost on him. None of this lost on him. Golf courses and one of the greatest states in the United States, America, Mar-a-Lago, all this stuff. It's right on the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, and it also backs up onto water on the backside, hence Mar-a-Lago. There's a lake back there, and the sea out front. It's surrounded by water. President Trump knows about these things. Joe Biden, he's got a lot of waterfront properties, certainly with his millions and millions of dollars in ill-gotten gains from Ukraine and his crackhead, crooked son with the FARA violations and all that. Hunter Biden got all that going on. He's got waterfront places, let there be no doubt. But let me tell you, a lot going on in Florida, as you're doubtless aware. It's all over the news. In fact, some places it's the only thing in the news. But at the same time, Joe Biden, crazy old Uncle Joe, he was out there yelling and pounding the table yesterday and gnashing his teeth about President Trump. He's a liar. It's un-American. It's un-American. He's yelling like he'd know what's un-American. You're un-American. You're un-American. Just go ahead and yell back at him. Call him things. Call him Hitler. I think if I were Trump, I'd call him Hitler. I'd say, Kamala's not Hitler, but she's Eva Braun. I'd say she's down in the bunker with Hitler toward the end, because that's where we are, in the bunker toward the end. Kamala's not really campaigning. She'd go on Stephen Colbert, though, and The View. And she went on, what's that? Who's Your Daddy? She went on Who's Your Daddy, which is kind of a weird name for a podcast, I think. Who's Your Daddy? But there it is. That's what she's doing, because it's all a terrible television show. It's all a terrible, horrible cable television show. We got that, and I wonder how her loving husband, what's he, a wife guy? Is that what he's called, a wife guy? I wonder how the old Slugger Emhoff is doing. And that's what they call him, right? His Secret Service code name is Slugger. Slugger's on the move. Slugger on the move. Slugger in the motorcade. Slugger is in the motorcade. Because he's well known for a few things. None of the things for which he is known are good things, I'd like to point out. And if we had a news media that covered the news, and we really don't, then I got to tell you, Slugger Emhoff would be a big story, wouldn't it? I mean, honestly, when he's not knocking him up, he's knocking him down. That's Slugger Emhoff. He's not on the side of women. What happened to that Pound Me Too? Well, he's the pound part. He's the pound part of Pound Me Too. Why do they put a pound sign in front of that? It's not a pound sign, Chris. It's a hashtag. Oh, really? So like when you dial pound 69, is that hashtag 69 to block calls, something like that? They make it up as they go along, don't they? They really do. But Joe Biden, he was out there being crazy yesterday, as he so often is. And he lied about a lot of stuff. Well, it's the old Russian playbook, like Victoria Nuland told us, the Obama White House State Department official who told us under oath on Capitol Hill that what she called the Russian playbook, and it was the Soviet playbook too, where whatever they're accusing you of, it's probably what they're doing.
It is classic Russian technique to blame on the other guy what they're planning to do themselves.
See, they just adopted the Russian playbook. It's a shortcut for the left in the United States. Why would they take time getting around to what the Russians, the Soviet Union already did all their legwork for them. And I know if we're going to lie about everything, let's start by accusing the other guy of lying about everything, and then we'll lie about everything, and then there'll be chaos in the discussion, and there'll be no rational adult discussion because of a filthy, corrupt news media that isn't actually searching for the truth, among other things. But we do have that going for us. And Joe Biden, I've got some Joe Biden for you. Lunch bucket Joe. His brain, she's a broke, she's a no good, that brain of his. Let me tell you now, as Joe Biden, and it's this disinformation, misinformation, and then cringe. Was she dressed like an extra from Guys and Dolls again yesterday? Did she start singing from the White House podium, "There ain't nothing like a dame"? Because, it's there ain't nothing like a dame when it comes to cringe, and she dresses like, Edward G. Robinson in Key Largo. Edward G. Robinson in Key Largo, that's pretty obscure. It is, but it's a fun one because Humphrey Bogart, and Edward G. Robinson and Lauren Bacall, and they're at kind of a beachy house in Florida when a hurricane comes. Edward G. is, of course, a gangster on the lam, and Humphrey Bogart has to tell him what a hurricane is like. And it's a fun movie, Key Largo, around hurricane time. And it's hurricane season, 'Tis the season. And it's election season, too. No, election season, which is different than what you just said. The Doug Emhoff story, that's an important story. He might become the first non-gentleman, the first anti-gentleman, the first pound sign gentleman, pound me too, gentlemen, honestly. And where is the news media trying to find the woman? You remember the Brett Kavanaugh hearings and what a big deal they made out of that crazy woman with the scratched up glasses buried in her big purse, and she had to have 2 front doors, and she had all these issues, and her family didn't support her, and the news media did. And she made up, sometime in high school, I don't know when, at somebody's house, I don't know whose, there was a party, and he was handing out red Solo cups, Brett Kavanaugh was, and the news media went absolutely apoplectic for weeks and weeks, scratching and clawing and trying to find something. But when it comes to Democrat Doug Emhoff throwing women off of rooftops in the Gaza, wait a minute, is he throwing women off of rooftops? And they go, well, not yet, but let's send him to Gaza. Give him a chance, because you know how he treats the women, the lady folk. Amazing stuff.
I believe her. She is putting herself out there, knowing that they're going to try and excoriate her. And she's doing it, I believe, because she knows that this is an important matter.
Kamala on Christine Blasey Ford with her scratched up eyeglasses and her giant purse and her 2 front doors, and she can't remember what year it is. What year this alleged incident took place. I think she knew what year it was when she was participating in the Democrat Party's lynching. They started with the high-tech lynching of Clarence Thomas, presided over by none other than Joe Biden. Then on to the lynching of Brett Kavanaugh. They're very bitter about this because they bring everything to court, so they want to be able to win with crooked justices in the end. What is just amazing. That's great. I'm being corrected here. There ain't nothing like a dame is not from Guys and Dolls. It's from South Pacific. So I want to straighten that out because that's an important detail, and it is. Yeah, right. No, it wasn't. No, it was Jane who corrected me on that because, I'm not. Yeah, Larry O'Connor's an expert on musicals. I thankfully am not. I have this this horrible, horrible problem. It's called heterosexuality. It's that's and in Democrat Party circles, that's a problem. Just look at Doug Emhoff. He's Mr. Toxic Masculinity. He's the poster child for toxic masculinity. We even have him talking about toxic masculinity. We played some of that yesterday because he thinks that masculinity can be too toxic, and he would know, I guess he wasn't married to the woman he was beating. Are you technically a wife beater when you're beating your girlfriend of 3 months? I guess not technically. What are you? The Democrats would say, he's a cad. They use the euphemisms like, when Bill Clinton chases every woman on the planet around and, crashes into desks like the Resolute desk and dogging. And they find out that he cheated on Hillary with 42 women. And they say, oh, he's a cad. He's a cad. If it were your husband, you'd send him out for a regimen of medical tests to see, how many, what do they call them now? STIs. That sounds like a space program, doesn't it? That's their sexually transmitted infections. They don't like STDs anymore, sexually transmitted diseases. Now they like to use sexually transmitted infections because they like to change their abbreviations every now and then just to see who's keeping up. And sane, rational people aren't really interested in keeping up because it's a mental illness. Am I right? Yes, I am. And we've got FEMA. How's FEMA doing? Because if you criticize FEMA, any criticism of the federal government when the left is in charge is misinformation and disinformation that will later turn out to be entirely true. In fact, most of the time it's already true when people say it and they call it disinformation and misinformation. And keep in mind that Hillary Clinton just 10 days ago or so was talking about how misinformation should be prosecuted, either civilly or possibly criminally prosecuted, and then they'll tell you what's misinformation or disinformation. They should be wearing armbands and goose-stepping around when they chant from the river to the sea, let's wipe out all the Jews. That's the subtitle is let's wipe out all the Jews. All right, well, I started off on a little rant, and that's okay. But President Trump is under attack. Just amazing stuff from Joe Biden and the Democrats, and that means the media, of course, with their filthy, rotten lies because they're un-American, aren't they, Michael? The news media and Joe Biden, they're all un-American. They're un-American. And we should call them fascists, too. We should call them because, it is a merger of state and corporate power. Benito Mussolini's definition of fascism. Now, also, President Trump is giving housing to 275 Florida linemen, like Wichita linemen, but these guys are in Florida. And a bunch of brave men who are down there, linemen, and he's got a number of resorts in Florida. And President Trump has given 275 linemen places to stay at one of his many. This is in Doral, I believe. And the news media is attacking him for it. They're literally attacking. Snopes is literally attacking him for it because they're filthy leftists and they'll impale your children on the tops of metal fences as soon as they like around the White House. They want to impale a baby on every pike around the White House, and they've actually done more than that in the last year. But there we go. So amazing stuff, and they're literally attacking him for it. Eric Trump put out a tweet. Honored to have 275 incredible linemen from FPL, Florida Power, and at the Trump Doral as they get ready to respond to the aftermath of Hurricane Milton. Bad name for a hurricane. Never name a hurricane Milton again. All right? Amazing. And Biden slams un-American Donald Trump again over Hurricane Milton misinformation. But is it misinformation? Or are they spreading misinformation? I think they should be in handcuffs. Where's the FBI when you really need them? We need some pre-dawn raids. Also, the headline from The Hill in Washington, Democrats start to hit the panic button. And this time it's not about their gender or their sexual orientation. This time it's about something else altogether. Kamala Harris's campaign distances itself from the 60 Minutes edit controversy. There's an edit controversy. because the news media likes to smooth things over for the Democrat Party. Amazing, amazing stuff. And did President Trump call Vladimir Putin and talk to him on the phone? If he did, is that a problem? Maybe Joe Biden should call Vlad the Impaler. What with the war and everything. Missing woman. I've got a story about a missing woman I want to share with you. She's been found, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a happy ending. We're at 888-630-9625. Yeah, this missing woman. This is quite a dramatic story I've got for you here. Right now, we've got the big hurricane in Florida and FEMA and the White House lying to us because we expect our federal government to lie to us, just when they're talking or putting out paper releases or when they're sitting there quietly. I expect them to be lying silently. Let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Rick calling from Elmwood Park, New Jersey. Ricardo, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Thanks for taking my call, and thanks to your wonderful screeners. They're so excellent. I'll tell you, you got the best screeners. The Democrats, people don't understand how evil they are. The Democrats will slow walk the hurricane rescue and let more people die so they can say, look, 800 people died from this storm. It's global warming, climate change. And somebody's going to say, no, they're not that evil. But the global warming scam funded the war against Ukraine. The global warming scam funded the war against Israel, and it caused all this inflation and global starvation. Price of food is through the roof.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, the Democrats don't want us eating either. The left doesn't want you to live in the lap of luxury. They attack America as being obese, and of course they're really the obese ones and raising the obese people for the most part. And we can't even find people that are fit enough to join the U.S. military anymore. But you started with they are the party of death. There is no question about that. Make no mistake, they're the party of 1 million. There were more than 1 million abortions last year in the United States. And they're pounding the table yelling, more, more, more. And they harvest the organs of the helpless little things. That's really their biggest thing in the world is more abortions. They're the party of death. And they're not on our side. I got a missing woman coming up. All right. Well, I just mentioned the missing woman, a woman from Michigan on vacation, 68 years old, 68-year-old. She went missing on vacation, but Colleen Monfore, or Monfore, M-O-N-F-O-R-E, Colleen Monfore, I'm going to go with that, was diving, doing diving with friends near Pulau. It was Pulau Riau, because she's in Pulau Riau, the island off the coast of Indonesia. Indonesia is an archipelago of thousands of islands, in fact. And she decided to go to Indonesia, and she was doing some diving. And then she went missing. I always like that turn of phrase, went missing. You go missing? Yeah, you go missing. And she went missing. Then the headline from People magazine, body of American tourist reportedly found in shark's stomach. Found in shark's stomach. What were they doing looking in the shark's stomach? Why were they looking there? How did they look in the shark's stomach? But it remains unclear how she died. It remains unclear how she might have died of old age. She might have died of tuberculosis. Could have been, who knows, heart failure. But there she is in the stomach of a shark, which you might take as a clue. You don't have to be Columbo to Inspector Clouseau to figure out, hey, we found your mother. I got good news and I got bad news. We found your mother. That's the good news. The bad news is she was in the stomach of a shark when we found her. So it didn't have a happy ending at all. friends of Colleen Monfort, 68 years old, said they don't believe that she died as a result of a shark attack. Well, that's pretty crazy. And here's a picture of the nice lady, and 68 years old, sitting on a nice beach chair in Indonesia, and she's getting ready to go diving. And then, the remains of an American woman who disappeared in the water during a diving excursion in Indonesia last month were later found in the stomach of a shark. Now, I'm reading People magazine, and I have to share with you because I enjoy pointing out the shortcomings of our media friends, our friends in the media. They're nobody's friend. What it actually says, and the lead sentence in the People magazine story says, the remains of an American woman who disappeared in the water during a diving excursion in Indonesia last month were later found in the stomach of a shark. What, they were later found later in the stomach? I think that's redundant and repetitive and unnecessarily repetitive. Later found later in the stomach of a shark, according to multiple news reports and friends of the victim. However, the exact circumstances of how she died remain a mystery. Indonesia is a land of many mysteries, and so it might be appropriate that this would be a mystery too. Amazing stuff. Colleen Monfort of Holland, Michigan, a very nice town, Holland, Michigan, was with friends during the diving in the waters near the island of Pulau Riau on September 26th when she was swept away by the currents. That's a clue, too. Per The Independent, the guide of the boat was unable to bring Monfort, 68 years old, back to the vessel, and a search was conducted for 8 days. 8 days. Then on Sunday, October 6th, the New York Post reported that a fisherman captured a shark in East Timor. They're fishing in East Timor. They're shark fishing and probably getting the shark fin for shark fin soup in China. They kill all the sharks for the shark fin soup. We've seen that again and again, haven't we? Yes, we have. The Chinese, they like their shark fin soup. So they kill the sharks, cut the fins off, and then just throw the shark back because they don't like to eat the shark. They just want the shark fin soup. That's mean. So the shark was caught, but it was not in normal health. How could they tell? They got a shark doctor out there? Hey, we caught a shark, but he doesn't seem to be very peppy. He's not very peppy. I thought it had swallowed plastic or a fishing net, said the fisherman via the New York Post, which cited news agency Asia Pacific Press. It was cut open to find the problem. We thought maybe it had eaten plastic, so in order to save it, we cut it open. Because, in Indonesia, that's how you save things, is you cut them open. It's different. Have you been to Indonesia? I've been to Indonesia. I have blow dart guns from Indonesia. They're made of bone and carved like dragons, the blow dart guns. They told me they're made from human bones, human femurs, but I'm not sure that's true. I don't know how I can find out for sure, but as I said. So it was caught, but it was not in normal health. Looked like swallowed a plastic bag or a fishing net, so naturally they cut the shark open to find the problem. And inside there were the remains of a woman. Dun, dun, dun. A black wetsuit containing the victim's supposed remains were also found in the shark's stomach, the agency reported. In a statement shared with People magazine on Wednesday, October 9th, the U.S. State Department spokesperson said they are aware of reports of the death of a U.S. citizen off the coast of Indonesia. That's what they could say, and then that's it. So if you're an American citizen, you can depend on the State Department to say something like that when your dead body is pulled out of a shark that's cut open to see if there's a plastic bag in there. The whole story is a little fishy, I've got to say, kind of fishy. It was also a weird moment at the State Department yesterday at the State Department briefing that I hope to get to today as well, where a reporter asked a question of the State Department briefer, and it was kind of interesting for a couple of different reasons. It was interesting because the reporter got in the face of the State Department spokesmodel, the guy that looks like a vampire. Nobody knows what his name is. He's boring, that much I can tell you. But we got that. Now, there's a lot to get to today, and let me start getting to some of it because Joe Biden started a fracas yesterday. He likes to call people names because he's a communist, Nazi, fascist, baby killer, thief with severe brain damage. I'm just doing the name calling thing. It's just the name calling. Because the Democrats taught me how to call names and things like that. So let's go to Joe Biden because Joe Biden had some weird stuff yesterday, weird, wacky stuff. He had some Joe Biden moments, and he's attacking Trump as un-American and a liar and all kinds of terrible things. And the news media is like, yeah, that's right. That's what we say, too. And I just don't know what to say about these people, but we don't have good political leaders in the United States. I'll say that much. Headline in the New York Times, Biden accuses Trump of, quote, outright lies, end quote, about hurricane response. That's the New York Times. And they're very upset because they're a Democrat Party front group, of course. And you know how that is. They're pretty wacky. President Biden expressed concern. That's what he did, the New York Times. He expressed concern that misinformation would undermine confidence in the response to Hurricane Milton. That's what the New York Times says he's concerned about, that President Trump might undermine confidence by raising questions, and you can't do that. President Biden on Wednesday accused former President Donald J. Trump of, quote, outright lies, end quote, regarding, regarding the federal government's response to Hurricane Helene, causing morale issues among emergency medical workers and confusing victims of the storm. Isn't that amazing? Because the headline and the subheadline say it's Hurricane Milton, and then the lead sentence in the story says they're talking about Hurricane Helene. The New York Times can't get anything right. They're just amazing. Yes, sir. And it might confuse victims of the storm. Mr. Biden lashed out at the former president and Republican lawmakers as he participated in a briefing from federal, and this was kind of a weird element in all this too, a briefing from federal officials about Hurricane Milton, which is expected to slam into Florida's west coast just 2 weeks after Helene hit the state. Now, this is from yesterday afternoon, of course, this New York Times article. But they can't decide which hurricane they're talking about because they're the New York Times and they're not very bright and they're not honest and they're not concerned about the facts. But never mind all that. Pretty amazing stuff. And it might cause confusion about which hurricane. Well, I don't know. The New York Times has caused confusion. I think the New York Times is spreading misinformation and disinformation. Wah, wah, wah. Amazing stuff. The last few weeks, there's been a reckless, irresponsible, and relentless promotion of disinformation and outright lies, Mr. Biden said. It's undermining confidence in the incredible rescue and recovery work that has already taken place and will continue. Let's go to Joe Biden yesterday. And one of the things that was weird about this, he didn't do this from the White House. He's only been to the White House briefing room once as president. Now, he could have done this from the Oval Office or from the cabinet room in the White House. But instead, they went across the street to the Eisenhower Executive Office building, an old French colonial building. It's a beautiful building. And they set up, you may remember, a phony White House inside a theater in the Eisenhower Executive Office building. And they make it look like the White House, which is right across the street. And they could just use the White House, but they built a fake one because they'd rather do something fake than do something real. Now, here's Joe Biden yesterday at the White House, in the fake White House. It's part of the White House complex, the Executive Office building. But it's a fake stage, a set that they built to look like he's in the White House with the window, and it looks like the South Lawn is out the window, and it's all trickery, Soviet style. It's the Russian playbook, the old Russian playbook. Here's Joe Biden yesterday.
For the last few weeks, there's been a reckless, irresponsible, and relentless promotion of disinformation and outright lies that are disturbing people. It's undermining confidence in the incredible rescue and recovery work that has already been taken and will continue to be taken. And it's harmful to those who need help the most.
It's harmful.
There's simply no place for this to happen.
The New York Times edited portions of that passage out to try to make Joe Biden look better because they couldn't be more corrupt. Mr. Trump, who is seeking a second term in the White House, no kidding, and his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, have made accusations about the government's response that have repeatedly been debunked by local, state, and federal authorities in the disaster areas. Really? Like Kamala Harris said, you get $750. Has that been debunked? Because I have the audio that I can play for you here, and there's video too. And let's see, what else has been debunked? Oh, that Russian collusion thing, and the New York Post reporting on Hunter Biden's laptop, and that getting the vaccine means you'll never get COVID-19, and getting the vaccine means you'll never be able to transmit COVID-19, and wearing a surgical mask means you'll never get COVID-19. What else has been debunked? Let me see. Joe Biden yesterday.
Literally, there are thousands of fellow Americans who are putting their lives at stake and putting on the line to do the dangerous work that needs to be done now.
At stake and on the line.
It's harmful to those who most need the help. Quite frankly, these lies are un-American.
These lies are un-American.
There's simply no place for them.
What lies?
Not now, not ever.
What lies? He hasn't cited anything. He's just being very vague and very general, Joe Biden.
Former President Trump has led the onslaught of lies. Assertions have been made that property is being confiscated. That's simply
I never saw
not
that.
true.
Yeah.
They're saying people impacted by these storms will receive $750 in cash and no more. That's simply not true.
And no more.
They're saying the money is needed for this crisis is being diverted to migrants. What a ridiculous thing to say. It's not true.
Well, then
Now the claims are getting even more bizarre.
Uh-huh.
Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, a congresswoman of Georgia, is now saying the federal government is literally controlling the weather. We're controlling the weather.
That was mockery.
It's beyond ridiculous.
It's mockery. She's ridiculing you. She's mocking you, and you're too stupid to know that you're being mocked. And you're the president of the United States, and you stink. You stink from a great distance. It's pretty amazing stuff. So Marjorie Taylor Greene put out a tweet saying, well, the Democrats control the weather because you guys pretend that you control the weather. And if we give you all of our money, that you'll make the weather better. Pretty amazing stuff. $750 in cash. Gee, whoever said anything like that? Just amazing. Man, oh man. So a reporter asked Joe Biden a question about this information that he says is un-American, this misinformation, disinformation that is so un-American.
Why do you think Trump is spreading misinformation?
I don't know. I simply don't know.
What an idiot question.
You can speculate, but
go ahead and speculate.
I just find it. I've used the phrase more than I've used it ever in my whole career. Un-American.
It's un-American.
It's un-American. It's not who the hell we are.
It's not a phrase. It's a word.
What are they talking about?
Yeah, what are you talking about? Because we still don't know what he's being accused of. Misinformation. It's un-American. And the reporter didn't ask, well, what misinformation specifically has President Trump disseminated? That you guys have offered $750? And did Trump say, and no more? Is that what Trump said? Because Lunch Bucket Joe, with his very, very limited intellectual capacity, is not capable of regurgitating what it is that he's accusing. And I looked at the New York Times story. I read it with great interest. He accuses President Trump of saying property is being confiscated. That's simply not true. But the New York Times doesn't explain what the hell he's talking about because he doesn't know what he's talking about. And the New York Times is as corrupt as any Soviet media outlet that ever existed. We're at 888-630-9625.
These lies are un-American, and there's simply no place for them.
Bam, bam, dam, bam, dam, bam, dam. All right, let's go to the telephones. talk to the nice people. And how is Iran doing under Joe Biden versus under Donald Trump? A government agency revealed some ugly truths. I have that coming up. Let's go to Michael calling from Woodbridge, Virginia. Michael, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Morning, Chris. Morning. I wanted to take a quick second. We need to pat ourselves on the back when we actually accomplish something. We were able to make Mayorkas backwalk. I know that last week I was furious because Wednesday was day 3 of this fiscal year, and to have Mayorkas, head of DHS, try to explain to me that FEMA is essentially bankrupt on day 3 of the fiscal year was absolutely insulting. Enough of us raised a stink about it that he ended up having to walk it back, and for one of those rare occasions, actually got to look like a piece of crap live time on the international stage. And I appreciated that from him. Thank you so much, Mayorkas. Today's issue, though, this whole thing with the disinformation, and it depends on if it's doing it south of the border. It's disinformation, right? You got to get that accent in there. The thing that they're sticking on is the $750 and no more. Joe said that in his actual little speech there. He says, and no more. And I'm telling you, I have not found anyone, any influencer, any national stage, any candidates or whatever else that said $750 and no more. What they said was $750 that you have to fill out an application for and wait 10 to 12 days for them to direct deposit it. And oh, by the way, you usually need ID for it, unlike your vote.
Yeah.
And so they're hanging their hat on this thing. I had 7 or 8 posts on Facebook yesterday get shadow banned because I used the image, the meme of Kamala Harris wearing the $770 belt buckle. They're actually shadow banning me as having that $750 conversation, and I didn't use the term $750. I didn't use the symbol $750.
Well, they love censorship.